says survey shows 55% of homeowners strapped for extra costs. So it said nearly 40% of Canadian homeowners said they're concerned about their finances, and fewer than half said they could afford more than a $200 increase in monthly costs. So going a bit further down in the article, where was it? That was, it says here, it says only 45% said that they could afford. So the survey basically surveyed 1,500 Canadians. They were talking about, it said only 45% said they could afford a $200 to $500 increase in monthly payments, while 19% said they could afford $500 to $1,000, and 9% said they could afford an increase of $1,000 or more. So when we're talking about these, increased interest rates, even a $300 payment, as we talked about, that puts 45% of Canadians now saying.
You're listening to the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast with your hosts Paul Stevenson, David Warren, and Greg Campbell. Let's see what's going on in the world of real estate today.
I feel like we should always come into the show like looking with our sunglasses on, like on the. Yeah. Welcome back, everybody. We're here, the Ottawa Real Estate Podcast, and we're going to talk today about real estate in Ottawa, Canada. We got a few things to talk about. My name is Paul Stevenson. I'm here with Greg Campbell. I'm here with David Warren, and I am one of the owners at Referral Mortgages. I'm also a mortgage agent. Love talking mortgages. Love talking finance. I'm joined with Greg Campbell, realtor, managing director at The Agency, Ottawa. He likes talking about real estate and home buying and selling. And David Warren, also an owner at Referral Mortgages, mortgage agent, loves talking about mortgages, finance. Let's get into it, gentlemen. The intros are fun. Quick shout out to North Brew. I'm going to catch them at the beginning here. If you go to northbrew.ca and use the promo code podcast, North Brew Coffee is going to give you 20% off your coffee order, and 20% of your order is going to go to the Ottawa homeless community. So great coffee, great cause. And we're also brought to you by the Ontario Mortgage Academy. Teaching agents need a slogan. They need a slogan. The Ontario Mortgage Academy. Gentlemen, how is the week? It's been a trying one here in Ottawa.
Yeah. It has been. Yeah, it has been. I also found this morning that I left beer in the freezer, and my wife likes to see that for me. She was extremely pleased.
Your freezer worked though.
Your can apparently not.
We recorded last week for anyone who's an avid listener. We recorded on Friday last week before the storm, and kind of tried to play it off like it was Monday. So we're like, hope everyone had a great weekend, not knowing that there was going to be a blackout across the city. And I think even today, when I looked earlier today, there's still about 35,000 homes without power in Ottawa. So, feeling grateful to be on. Greg's got his lights on behind him there. And I just want to apologize for anyone who heard that and thought we were just being inconsiderate assholes. We actually, we didn't predict Mother Nature was going to be so cruel last weekend. So
just like we can't predict the changes in the real estate market, can't predict the weather.
Yes.
Mother Nature.
That is true. The market is very interesting. I got a nice little surprise this week. I went into my mortgage. I have it with a green bank, and walked into my online banking, took a look at it, and lo and behold, my amortization had gone up 3 years, and said, "What the hell is going on?" So kind of took a deeper dive. Realized obviously I'm in a variable rate. My when the rate went up, obviously my amortization extended, payment stayed the same. So I voluntarily had to increase I didn't have to, but I voluntarily increased my payment, lowered the amortization by 6 years. Not going to beat me. Yeah, I'll outweigh the. So I lowered it by 6 years, and I just felt like it would probably be a worthwhile conversation for us to, kind of reiterate to listeners and to clients and to, just the general public, the difference between variable rates and adjustable rate mortgages. I know we've talked about it in the past, or at least, Dave and I are very pro variable rate, but now more than ever, it's really important to understand the differences between an adjustable rate and a variable rate. I have like kind of a case study, I guess you could say, just to give people an idea as to the differences. And Dave, do you want to give people maybe a high level breakdown of the difference between the two, and then I can get into the numbers?
Yeah,
just so I'm not talking
for sure. So there's so like Paul said, there's two types of variable type mortgages. Most banks just use it as a broad term, or in the market use it as a broad term of variable rate mortgage. Technically, there's a variable rate mortgage and there's an adjustable rate mortgage. So there's a couple of banks that their payments, we talked about it last week, where when prime changes, your effective rate can fluctuate with bank prime. So if prime goes up, your rate goes up, prime goes down, your rate goes down, and your payments adjust accordingly. So, let's say big bank with a red logo, theirs is an adjustable rate mortgage. So when prime goes up, their rates go up, your payments go up, so that your amortization remains the same. Like Paul was saying, big bank with a green logo, their payments are static. So as prime changes and your effective rate changes, your payments remain the same. But within that payment, the amount going to interest and the amount going to principal adjusts. So in a case like Paul was talking about, if you got your mortgage from, let's say a bank with a green logo recently, and prime went up on you, 75 basis points, like it has over the last few months, you might be in a situation where there's more interest going, more of your payment going to interest than to principal, which changes your effective amortization or period of time to pay off your mortgage. So I think we talked about it last week. I blend weeks together, but
some
where
point in the past.
Where you can get in a situation that you are either getting a letter from the bank. The green bank might say, hey, we need you to increase your payments to bring it down, to bring your amortization down, or make a lump sum payment to bring it down below that 30-year or 25-year threshold.
Yeah, perfect. That's a great explanation. So the example I had here was for, and it's not too many mortgages that are sitting at 300K right now if you're buying a home in Ottawa, at least unless you're putting a large down payment. But I used a 300K mortgage, 25-year amortization, and a rate of prime minus 0.9, which was typical. There's still a few lenders that are in that range, but I just use that as an example. And then I did the numbers based on a 200 basis point increase. So basically like a 2% increase, which we're probably going to see in this, if you got a mortgage, let's say a year ago, we're probably going to see that in this term. So based on a variable rate, so we'll do variable rate and then I'll do adjustable rate afterwards. So variable rate, your initial payment would be $1,427. If it were to increase by 200 basis points, basically the end payment would stay the same, so it doesn't change, 1427. So as we said, it's just the amount of interest and principal that changes. The balance at the end of the term would be 272,551. Let's just say 272. And then on renewal, your payment would actually increase to 1,800. So if you're paying 1427 on renewal because of the new mortgage balance, your payment would increase to 1,800. If you had an adjustable rate mortgage, and I'll kind of compare the two as we go here, initial payment of 1427, so that stays the same, obviously. The ending payment would be 1,728, so it would increase by $300 just because of that increase, and that's basically an extra $300 to interest. The balance at the end of the term would be 261,000, so it's actually $11,000 less if you had an adjustable rate. And the payment on renewal would be 1,728. So it basically stays the same as, so it steadily increases as the rates increase. So there's no sticker shock on renewal. You're paying down more of the balance, but then also, you're paying an extra $300 a month. So if you had the variable rate, obviously your payments don't change, but you're going to pay down less of your principal at the end of the term. And also your payments are going to increase pretty dramatically at the end of the term. A bit more. It's only about a $75 difference as far as the payments. But as Dave said, it's very likely that the lender might say, hey, especially if you had a 25-year AM or a 30-year AM amortization, and you're in your first year, let's say, and rates start to increase. Well, now you might be at 24 years, but if the rates increase and more of it's going to interest, you might be over that 25-year cap. You might be at 27 years or 28 years of your amortization. So the bank is going to say, we can't have that. You need to, as Dave said, you need to increase your payment so that brings it below that 25 years, or you have to make a lump sum of whatever it is, let's say that $11,000 to bring yourself back in line with where you were originally.
I think where all this is really going is, number one, Paul and I, and a lot of mortgage professionals out there are big proponents of variable for a number of reasons. And especially right now, I was talking to people yesterday, it's almost a 2% spread between the fixed rates right now and where variable's at. So even if it does increase at 1.5 or 2% on prime, you're only then still going to be equal to what the fixed rates are now. So there is still benefits. I think what really we want to highlight is if you have a variable rate mortgage or you're getting into a variable rate mortgage, there are huge benefits. This is not to deter you from that. Actually, to the contrary, it's more to educate you to kind of pay attention to where your payments are, or whether you're in an adjustable rate mortgage or in a variable rate mortgage, and just be cognizant of that and where prime is going in order to adjust. Maybe you want to proactively adjust your payments like Paul did, so that you're not behind the 8 ball down the road, or getting a letter where you now have to make a lump sum payment that you weren't planning on or not thinking of. Or in cases like we've talked about before, just setting your payments maybe like as if they were that fixed rate mortgage, but on a variable. So setting your payments off the hop of that 2% higher, like it would be as if you got a fixed rate, and that builds in that possible increases in prime, and the entire time you're paying off more principal. So it's just being cognizant. There are huge benefits to variable. But all of this and Paul's explanation on the payment changes is really just to be aware of kind of the ins and outs, really.
And the other thing that we've talked about in the past, just to reiterate it one last time, is that you do have the option with a variable rate to convert it into a fixed rate. So if the rates are getting to a point where you're like, this is crazy, I just want to lock it in, you can do that. But just know that you're doing that really for maybe it gives you peace of mind, but it's also in the best interest of the bank. So oftentimes we'll see the banks kind of promoting you to lock it in, because you're going to go from, say, maybe a 2.7% rate to a 4.5% rate. So the bank is essentially getting an extra 2% on your money for the next 3 years or 4 years. So that's a huge benefit.
And high penalties, well. And then locking you into IRD penalties if you were to break. So there's a reason why you could convert your variable rate mortgage to a fixed rate mortgage for free. But you cannot go the other way around. You can't go from a fixed to a variable, because it obviously benefits the bank going into a fix. So anyway, no, I think that's great. And I think that kind of leads to, I know you had an article, Paul, that kind of was related to that as well, with regards to, Canadians' finances, if you will.
Yeah, so it was actually from Bloomberg this morning, and they were talking about the headline, which I'll dig a bit deeper into it, but it says survey shows 55% of homeowners strapped for extra costs. So it said nearly 40% of Canadian homeowners said they're concerned about their finances, and fewer than half said they could afford more than a $200 increase in monthly costs. So going a bit further down in the article, where was it? That was, it says only 45% said that they could afford. So the survey basically surveyed 1,500 Canadians. They were talking about, it said only 45% said they could afford a $200 to $500 increase in monthly payments, while 19% said they could afford $500 to $1,000, and 9% said they could afford an increase of $1,000 or more. So when we're talking about these, increased interest rates, even a $300 payment, as we talked about, that puts 45% of Canadians now saying that they couldn't afford that. So when we're in an environment where we have rising interest rates, this is obviously I'm sure a concern for a lot of the regulators and banks and for Canadians as well, obviously, because this is something that clearly is not possible, right? People just can't afford that change, and with the rising costs of inflation's at a 30-year high. Rising cost of gas, food, really everything. The only thing I think that's come down in Ottawa is daycare costs. Other than that, everything's gone up in price. And was there anything else in that article that stood out to the two of you as far as?
The one thing that kind of stood out to me by and large is it is referencing monthly costs in general, not specific to mortgages. This is also encapsulating food costs and gas costs and things like that. So like Paul said, costs are coming up across the board because of historically high inflation right now, which kind of adds to it. If it was just mortgage payments coming up, then I think there wouldn't be so much alarm. But when you have food costs jumping like they are and gas costs, it's kind of crazy right now. So This is something where when you're qualifying for a mortgage as well, one thing, we've talked about it before that came in 2018 is that stress test. So, people that are qualifying for a mortgage have been qualifying at, 4.79, 5, lately over the last year and a half, 5.25%, as if those were your monthly payments. So kind of that is caked into what people were making, being able to afford that. But I think that's where people do stretch and maybe get a cosigner on, a parent, things like that, where they are stretching, where they can then qualify for that mortgage, but not being cognizant of their budget. And that's something that I know Paul and I always speak to people of. It's one thing to look at what you qualify for as a maximum to purchase a home, but you need to be cognizant of what your budget is. And I think over the last 2 years, and possibly some of these people have forgotten what their pre-pandemic spending habits were as well. They forget what their social life was like before COVID, or restaurants and services they were going to. And as things open up now, or have been open, that they're back to regular spending, that now things are jumping in cost, and are also wanting to get back into going out for dinner or things like that. And it kind of, that all plays into it. But I don't know if Greg, I know that Paul and I have been taking over this episode right so far, but for your home buyers, is their budget kind of on their mind, or do you find that it's just like what their maximum is? Like, do you ever hear them talk about their budget or rising costs and kind of keeping that in mind? Or is it just like, what do I qualify for? Let's go find a home. Fire.
Yeah, it's still that. I'll be honest, I haven't had too many conversations with new buyers in the last few weeks. Like I've had conversations with a few, and we're just kind of starting the process. So the guys that I've been working with already, that's based on, they just have a price point and that's it. And they all have a pretty good salary. So I haven't seen it personally with buyers, like, having it reflect on their purchase. But I mean, I imagine I will, it's the hot topic lately with everything, the inflation, gas and everything. And it does for a lot of people, it's going to affect them in the end. Like, especially the people like who, the guys with the big trucks, they're going to be spending an extra $1,000 a month on gas. That's a lot of money, man.
Yeah. And that's going to make the price of everything else go up. Your general contractor prices are going to go up. That's, everything.
That's the thing. And we were even talking about, like, you order pizzas for dinner and, the delivery fee is up. Delivery fee's up now. And then you're supposed to include a tip on top of that. So you've got like the processing, delivery, tip and everything. By the time you order a couple pizzas for dinner, you're up for like $75. Yeah. That's for like a family of four. I mean, it's crazy. You remember when pizzas used to be like, it's $20. For the whole family.
$20 bill. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 for 1.
Yeah, I think it's I think in Ottawa we won't see as big an effect. Like you said, like there is going to be a big subset, but Ottawa being such a highly employed city, and high average household incomes, I think we won't see as big a ripple effect. Obviously, there are a number of people that are going to be affected, and I don't mean to diminish that, but I think there are certainly many other areas within Canada that will be grossly affected by the rising interest rates and the rising cost of inflation, like East Coast, where incomes aren't as high, or prairies, things like that. And some of the prairies, this is kind of taking out Alberta, if you will. But I think a lot of those markets will be hit the hardest, and those individuals, which will be tough to see. But kind of moving out west, and I know, we're more Ottawa based, but some things that happen out west first kind of come into Ontario. I don't know if Greg, if you kind of looked at, if you saw this article,
kind of had a chance to read that article. I like it.
I
like it. Go ahead, dude.
No, I was just going to say, so the article, it's in the CBC, again, 3-day cooling off period and transparent bidding recommended to transform the BC real estate sector. So, maybe Greg, you can kind of lead us off.
Yeah, well, they're just trying to, it's just part of, provinces trying to make change to, help buyers out from getting stuck in these situations that they don't want to be in or shouldn't be in. I think we're all big believers in transparency, and we're not huge fans on the way that the market's been going, but we've bring the knowledge and we facilitate all of this to make sure that everybody's, you know, well aware of what's happening and what they're getting into. But I like this. They have a, they're looking for a 3-day cooling off period. So I'm just trying to find the part here. So the 3-day cooling off period, that's basically like a 3-day, like a conditional period.
Yeah, like
to take away unreasonable risks.
Yeah, so they said a 3-day cooling off period to enforce home inspections during that period, and which I think is great. So it's implementing that, people getting that opportunity. I thought one thing that's interesting is they do have that they implement a termination fee of 0.1 to 0.5% of the price of the home to be paid by the buyer who pulls out of a deal, which I think is interesting as well, because it means that people aren't just firing on properties, just for the hell of it. And if they get it, great. And, but it's making people also more serious. So sellers also know that somebody going into a cooling off period, that they're going to have to pay, if they back out of the deal, that there is, there is a cost to that. And a 5-day pre-offer period. So property listed, no action, no offers on that property for that 5 days. So it gives people time, to look at the property, to see it, not to increase like bidding wars or anything like that, but just to give people time to really do their due diligence on a property, and not feel like they have to rush out. Like you talked about the other week of something coming up and having to get in your car and go see it that day in order to offer on it within hours, and people making that rush decision.
I really like that, the payment, the modest termination fee. And the reason I like it is because there's so many times when you've got a property, like imagine you're a home seller, your property's, you've got a conditional period, you agree to it. And let's say it's extended, maybe it's a condo, you got the status certificate, so it could be a 2-week period. Imagine your property's off the market for 2 weeks and then they walk away, because that's basically what conditions are for. They're for the benefit of the buyer, not the seller. And the buyer can just walk away. It's like they're like escape clauses, basically. So to have a modest fee for that, it does definitely, it'll make people be more aware of what they're getting into when they start. Because if they go in and they're like, okay, we really like the property, if we decide not to take it after all the conditional period, that we're going to have to pay this fee. I mean, the buyer that you're going to get is going to be a serious buyer that's prepared to lose that amount if it doesn't go through. So I think that's interesting. I think it'll be hard to push through, but all these new rules that are coming in, I think they're long overdue. Everything needs to be managed better for both sides. And I like these plans that they're coming up with here.
I think and then the last one in it that they have is getting away with blind bidding and having a transparent bidding process. And I think that's something that the Ontario board has been talking about as well. And it's been in the news quite a bit, obviously over the past couple of years with multi-offers and all of that kind of driving up prices. But it seems as though it is in a third reading with the BC legislature. So it'll be interesting to see if it does get passed through, and to what extent for all of these. Like I said, a lot of this, gets passed through. BC is usually ahead of Ontario for whatever reason in a lot of things.
We've got the blind bidding thing being removed next April 1st.
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, it's up to the seller what they want to do, but I imagine most of it's going to turn to transparency, because that's what everybody's going to want. No one's going to want to go into blind bidding. So do you foresee it coming? Like if they, and I know we talked about it a few weeks ago, I forgot that it was April that it was coming up, but do you foresee, it being an option of blind bidding or transparent? Do you foresee it just going like this being the introduction to it just going away completely and being transparent? I think it'll go away, because I think what's going to happen is you're going to have inventory, and we all know there's going to be way more inventory next year when this starts happening. It's going to be back to a more balanced market, maybe even a buyer's market at that point. And so you've got 4 houses that are almost the same, and you've got one seller that's having blind bidding, and then you've got 3 that are having transparent bidding. Like, buyers are going to go to the transparent one no matter what. I mean, you would assume it could change, but I just think everybody, whether the price is always going to almost be the same, in the end. So whatever whatever the seller wants to do. But I think there will be sellers that will lose buyers because of if they want to go with blind bidding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's. I think it'll be interesting to see. I think some of these, like you said, a lot of these changes are long overdue. It's also funny that as these come in, it'll be coming in during a period in which the market's slowing down anyways. So I don't think we'll be able to see the how immediate or how drastic an effect it has on the market. Like if this came in middle of 2021, then I think we'd be able to see like exactly how much of an impact it made, as opposed to by the time it comes in, maybe the market will have been pick up again. But I think those stats will be really interesting to kind of track of how many are blind, how many are transparent, how that affects things, and what those average price points over list those differing bidding processes are too.
That'll be interesting data to see for sure. Speaking of data,
someone
was speaking of data. Someone was asking about Barrhaven last week. Is that what happened?
Data.
The Haven.
The Barrhaven.
So I did
Barrhaven.
Oh yeah, that's right, Barrhaven. So I did a combo as usual, Barrhaven and Riverside South. So this is pretty interesting. So I did it. I split it up into a row and semi-detached, and then detached in another file. I didn't do condos on this one. So the average, there's 47 active listings right now in Barrhaven, Riverside South, and the average list price is $669. Average days on market is 15. There's 2 conditional sales. The average conditional sales price right now is $637,000, 12 days on market. And there's been 4 sold. This is all within the last week. Excuse me, I should have said that. We know that I usually do this on a weekly thing now. So there's only been 4 sold in the last week, 15 days on market, average of $629,000. So you can see that the ones that haven't sold.
I think this is also a blackout period too, though, right? This week's been without power, I would say.
Sure, but I will say that the ones that are priced higher have been on for longer than 15 days. So they've been on for like 20 days to 50 days, and they're sitting. So if you see the list price average here is 670,000, and the average sold is 629,000, that goes to show you something, I think, that the prices may be coming down. And most of those that sold, the sales price to list price is averaging 103% now. So it's down again. Remember, based on what I was saying the last few weeks, it was 110, 110, 110, then it was 108, 105. Now here we are at 103. So let's go into the detached properties here. So we've got detached 50 listings. Average list price is $1,035,000, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's a little skewed. Well, there's some pretty big numbers out there, actually. Big ones in Riverside South. Average days on market, 20 days on market. And now the real big ones out here have been on for 90 days plus. So I just wanted them to be in there so everyone's aware. Conditional sales, we have 2. 937,000 is the average sales price for a detached home in Barrhaven, Riverside South, 25 days on market. And sold, the average sales price is 165,000 with 13 days on market. And the sales price to list price ratio is 104%. So again, if you look at the average sales price over the list price right now, it's quite astonishing. In both, in the row semis and the detached, I mean, we're talking like drops of 100,000 of what homes have been selling for versus what the current ones listed are on the market. So the new ones are coming out, they're listing a little bit lower. I'm finding that the ones that are selling way over are listing way under what they would have been a few months ago. Like, for example, there was one in Orleans where I sold my big one that I had. They were all listing at like $1 million. We were under that and nothing was selling. And then one came out, it was a 4-bedroom, 2-car garage, same as the other ones that were at $1 million that hadn't sold. They listed it at $850. They held offers, it sold for $970. So I wasn't sure if that strategy was going to work for that one of listing it that low. Like the sellers had to be pretty confident in the market and the strategy, because most of these other homes now are listing, a lot of the big ones are listing at market value. So anyways, they did that. Mine's conditionally sold now, but some of these other ones have been on for over 25 days now, and they're still sitting.
That's what I was going to ask. If I know we were dealing last year with a lot of realtors that were pricing the properties, 150, 100,000 under the actual market value, just to get the eyes on it, get the people through, get those bidding wars. Do you find now that because the list price to sale price certainly has dropped, like you said, it was a 130, 120, 110, 108, now it's 104, 103. So is that because they're pricing them more accurately, or is it just because the market is balanced, or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination of both, because there's still stuff, and there's still products like unreserved, right? So it's like, there's not one answer to that question, but based on what we've been seeing, it's like I said, the last couple of weeks, I mean, we're coming up on 30 days average on market, and sales price to list price is probably going to be 100%. Things will be selling closer to list, and some are going to be selling under list. The ones that list high and either do price reductions, or the ones that just list within the value. So anyways, I don't know. It's there's some big changes. Like I say to everybody, it's a good time to shop. Don't be afraid of submitting offers that are way below list, because there are those sellers that are just going to they have to move for whatever reason. They might be going to a new place. There's opportunities right now.
That's a great point, Greg, because there's a lot of people that probably bought in, February, March, even, that are closing in June, that have to sell their property to get into their new place. So there is definitely going to be some opportunities coming in the
For sure.
Well, even right now, not even in the coming weeks, right now.
I think the drop in prices, like you're mentioning, or seeing them come down to more list price, like you mentioned, Greg, I think is interesting. And one thing I noticed yesterday from a private lender, an email I received, they are lowering their or increasing their down payment requirement. So they're not, instead of going to 80% loan to value, meaning 20% down, the max they'll go to is 75% of the appraised value for credit scores over a certain threshold, and 65% loan to value, meaning 35% down for people with a certain credits, for a lower threshold credit score. And they really, and that's a drop of 10 and 15% of what they were willing to do, meaning that people have to put down 10 to 15% more using these guys. And this is a private lender, very flexible in their lending parameters. And so I thought that was really interesting when I saw that yesterday as to their shift in that. So I think that's kind of speaks a little bit to what you're mentioning of seeing kind of prices come to more list. Cause I know, Paul and I have been seeing it on appraisals that we order, where, in an increasing price environment, appraisers are looking at, they're having to look at the past 90-day sales of a property. When they're appraising it today, they're looking at, 3 months behind at comparable sales. And then also, sometimes factoring in, a little bit of where the market's going. So they're giving a little more on price because they know that people are paying a little bit higher, prices are going up. So they're giving a little more leniency to match that upper price point. But in a decreasing environment or stabilizing, they're not able to give those extra values. So I think that's also where they're going with, on this lender, they're kind of seeing that. And I think going forward, if you have a purchase and your closing date isn't until September, and there's an appraisal needed, get it done now. Don't delay on it. For you mortgage brokers out there, or home buyers, or even realtors, get that appraisal done now, because as prices come down or stabilize, it might be a little harder to hit that value that maybe they signed a purchase agreement for 3 months, now when they're closing in 3 months, not delaying. And this, the opposite would have been said in 2020, late 2020, 2021, when if somebody overpaid for a property, maybe they were closing in a couple months, you could delay a month, giving yourself, more recent sales that were bumping up, and then you order the appraisal. Kind of you want to reverse that mindset now of ordering the appraisal immediately, not delaying on it, in order to get that in order to have a chance at hitting that value.
Yeah, and there is something I want to say too about buyers and sellers. You should always be, especially when the market's changing like this, you should always be in communication with your broker, because I'm working with some people now where the value of their home kept going up like by extreme value over the last couple of years. And as we were trying to shop, we still haven't got anything. And the price point just went up and up and up, right? So like we were looking at 900,000, then suddenly, what they wanted at 900 was like 1.2 million. But the bank, every step of the way, we would reassess the value of their place, and they were able to now afford like a 1.2 based on what the market was saying they could sell their home for.
Right. So
the same thing goes coming down, because now what they're looking at isn't 1.2 million, but when they sell their home, it's also not going to be like 850,000.
Well, and they're going to qualify for less, like we were saying about the qualifying.
They're going to qualify for less, but it's all relevant, right? Like it's all relative. I mean, like their property's worth less, but the home that they're looking for is worth less than what it was too. So just, again, people panic, but they panic because they don't communicate with their professional partners, right?
I think that's an awesome point, Greg. If you've been pre-qualified or you're out shopping and you were pre-approved even 2 months ago,
call us.
Make sure to circle back around with your mortgage professional to get reevaluated on, if you have a home to sell, talk to your realtor again. Or if you're you're kind of thinking you've been shopping and you have a existing home, make sure to keep in contact with your realtor. Like, what's the true value now, to gauge your down payment, and reevaluate with your mortgage professional of what you qualify for now. If you're wanting to go fixed, that the rates have come up, you're qualifying for less just based on the qualifying parameters, and you're likely going to have that less down payment. So kind of keep everyone in the loop and have that conversation, to make sure, don't just go off of necessarily those numbers from 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 4 months ago. You're going to really be putting yourself at a huge disadvantage, or be completely off and screwed when it comes down to putting an offer in.
Yeah.
And back to the point we've talked about the last few weeks where, the recommendation of selling before you buy. So in one scenario I'm involved with, they need to buy before they sell, because what they want is it's not super unique, but it's like a lifelong home. Like they're buying something that they want to be in for 20 years. Right. So my advice to them was, I'm like, and I know their personality. So I'm like, if we sell first and you don't get like a 6-month closing, I mean, even if you do, you guys are just going to be panicking, because you're not going to see what you want, and the market could change, and we just don't know what's going to come. So what I did say was, they do have a home that has all the bells and whistles. I'm 100% sure it will sell for top dollar. But they need to be aware of what that actual number will be. And that's why we always have to monitor it. Like every single week we're watching it, because we don't know when that one for them is going to come up, and they got to jump on it. Yeah. Pay attention, everyone. Pay attention.
I agree. Should we slide into the mood boost, Paul?
Yes, we should. I got 3 today, but before we do that, I actually wanted to say Ontario Mortgage Academy, who's one of our sponsors, has a new course out. So anyone who is listening to this, who's a mortgage agent, new course, Underwriting Like a Wizard, is coming out. It's going to launch June 20th is when it starts. So you can book your seat today. And awesome course. It's going to go over pretty much everything. If you scroll down there, Stephen, I'll give a quick synopsis here. I can't really read that. Basically everything needing to do with underwriting. Okay. There you go. Underwriting, understanding income, reading and correcting a credit report, handling non-subject properties like rental worksheets, analyzing the deal, placing your deal and submitting it, fulfilling conditions, best practices, useful tips. And then there's going to be some case studies and some hands-on practice. So if you're a mortgage agent and you're looking to better your understanding of underwriting, that's the course, Underwriting Like a Wizard. I'll work on that one. Sorry, Ontario Mortgage Academy.
Name.
Ontario Mortgage Academy.ca. Get on it.
.com.
.ca, whatever.
I'll be honest.
Go and look at it.
I was debating on starting the Ottawa Wizard Academy.
Oh, yeah?
So we'll see about that. It's to come. for all you aspiring wizards out there.
Oh yeah, all the wizards and warlocks out there. Okay, here we go. Mood boosts. I got 3. All pretty good. Not many, but they hit. They bang. They slap. What's the correct term that all the kids are using? Okay, so number 1.
Correct.
What did the fish say when he swam into a wall? Damn. Oh, wow. Saw a pencil the other day with 2 erasers. Thought it was pointless. And this is the last one, my favorite. Why do cows have hooves instead of feet? Because they lactose.
Wow.
Wow.
All right.
They lactose. Let's
Wow.
go.
I like it.
I'd give you a 3 for 3 on that on this week. I think they all hit.
Wow,
Those are
that
good.
hasn't happened in a long time.
I know. I
Those are
think that
good.
might be a first.
Those were pulled from everywhere. The fish joke was from my calendar. The pencil joke was actually from my brother, going old school. And the last one was from one of our agents who said, I thought you might like these silly cow jokes. And I did. So they made
That's
it
great.
because they lactose. I mean, that's pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
that's amazing. That one's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yes, we'll be back next week. We're going to have some cottage experts on. We got a few guests coming up actually in the coming weeks. We got the cottage experts, and then we're going to get into everything construction financing, building your home. So we're going to be kind of switching gears here for a few weeks. But the cottage episode last year was a big hit. I know people are still now, there's some deals out there now, especially with the market shifting. I know cottages were booming the last 2 summers, but there's going to be some opportunities coming up, and we're going to have the guys on to kind of go over all the ins and outs of the cottage market.
If I'm not mistaken, I think they're going to do it from Trevor's boat.
Of course they are.
So that should be, obviously.
Fishing, casting.
I'm sure the connection will be amazing. All the technology will work phenomenally. It won't be a bot show.
What could go wrong?
What
could go wrong?
That's what I'm going to confirm. Oh yeah, remember me last summer at that deck? Wow.
Yeah.
With the caterpillar on your finger or a foot
Wow. Yeah.
or butterfly,
What a
whatever
day.
it was. Anyways, shout out to North Brew coffee. Go to northbrew.ca, use the promo code podcast, get 20% off your coffee order. And shout out to OMA, the Ontario Mortgage Academy. New course. Keep watching it. Next week will be better. And gentlemen, enjoy your weekend. We're recording again on Friday. We'll be back on Monday starting next week. But thank you to our listeners. Make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review. We love you, and we'll see you soon.
All right.
Deuces.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe because we'd really like that.